Thank you all very much. Not to get all corny or anything, but I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here in front of you all. And I've been in that seat, and I'll be in it in an hour and a minute. But it is a real honor, and I really hope that this presentation provides some value. My name is David Feeley. I'm a native of the Jersey Shore in Brick Township. All right, and I've had the pleasure of moving all over the country, and I'm glad to be back home. All right, our great staff is here, Coach Kyle Sager and Coach Ryan Horton. All right, you want to learn about Catapult? That's your guy right there. All right, I want to thank the Eagles. I want to thank Hammer Strength. I want to thank my friend Lon Record for allowing me to do this, okay? And I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Coach Jeff Collins and Dr. Pat Kraft, so I'm extremely grateful. Moving on to the presentation, all right, this picture was at our Pro Day. We're going to we're going to start off with a video, and then whatever questions you may have, this talk really won't work unless you can just stand up, raise your hand, get my attention, and let's walk through this entire presentation. All right, here we go, Coach, hit play. Okay, today we're going to talk about preparing to lift big weights. That's the fun. Those are the big days. That's what everybody wants to see. But we need to go and start off with what do we do before we get to that point? What are the weeks that build up? What's the first part of our workout? And we really have two things before the madness starts. Okay, we have the warm up, which its purpose is to raise body temperature, right? That's what we want to do. All right, increase blood flow. Raise your body temp. You don't want to be coming from a still position and have your athletes sprint really fast. It's bad in a variety of ways, okay? With exercises, we'll do jump rope work. We'll do hurdle work. We'll do crawling. We'll do gymnastics work. I mean, the funny thing is when we have a visitor and you see our big lineman tumbling forward, backward, and doing cartwheels, that's when you get the real kind of crazy looks. But the better that our athletes can move in space and make contact with the ground and learn how to be good rollers, the better and safer they're going to be on the field. And I think that's important in any sport, all right? You watch baseball, you watch lacrosse. I mean, they're flipping, they're rolling, and they, you know, the best athletes of the world get off the ground fast and they roll really nice. And that's what we want to train our boys to do. Okay, now, the lifting prep, and this is really what we're going to concentrate on, except for the hurdle work, you'll see that, is to introduce specific movement patterns so that our guys are prepared to lift big weights. So we don't take the approach of, let's just do a quick warm-up and then get to the lift. Our bread and butter at Temple are our squats and our cleans, and then variations off of that. So it could be the power snatch, could be a hang snatch, could be cleans and then pulls and then bench press. But those are the biggest movements that will make or break who we are, what we do when the rubber hits the road. So that's where we want to be. We want our bodies to be warmed up. We want to have specific movement patterns. We want their backs to be primed. We want their shoulders to be loose. We want their hips to be loose. We want their ankles to be mobile. All right, and we will show you through these exercises here, hyperextension, single leg movement, which will change, okay? Our snatch complex and our snatch push press and overhead squat, okay? So looking from Gray Cook, okay, the overhead squat calls on bilateral symmetrical mobility and stability of the shoulder, scapular regions, and the thoracic spine. We overhead squat every day with the bar. Twice a week, maybe 3 times a week with 40 kilos. And we do that this statement backs that up as to why we'll do it, okay? And then the pelvis and core must establish stability and control to the entire movement pattern, or the entire movement to achieve the full pattern. So as good as the FMS is and the way it serves us as coaches for whoever uses it, look at it, okay, you know, how are you going to get better at overhead squatting? Overhead squat. That's how do you get better at hitting a baseball? Hit a baseball. That's how you do it. Now, there's a couple things that you may have to tweak. You may have some rotational issues within your shoulder or in your hips that you may have to address, and we will do that, or our physical therapist will do that. But they're only going to get better at it is if they do it, and they need to do it under load. Now, if it looks like it's going to hurt the athlete, we will not do that, okay? So, and we're going to show a bunch of clips here. And when I was at Ball State, I was there from 2011 to 2015 was when I really started to implement this in the workout, okay? And that was my first time as a head strength coach. Before that, Coach Horton over here and I, we were at FIU together. And our boss, Roderick Moore, a tremendous mentor of ours, he would have our guys hang snatch and overhead squat. I was like, all right, well, that's pretty cool. Now, I had never seen it in a program like what Coach Moore had done. And I was looking at it like, well, I guess that's pretty cool, and I wasn't understanding the why. So the more I kept looking at it, I was like, well, I used to compete locally in Olympic lifting. My shoulders felt great. My hips felt very loose. My core was always activated when I did it because the overhead squat will stimulate your anterior more than your posterior. And, you know, you balance that out with back squat, and you get pretty strong, you get pretty stable. So I'm looking at it, and then it took me until the third or fourth year at Ball State to say, you know what? I'm going to load this with our developmental boys and see what the benefits could be. And then after 2 years of doing that, the second I got this job, I knew what the number one thing we were going to do with every freshman. And that was this exercise right here. Okay? Now, could you hit play there, Coach? All right, so our snatch, and after the warm-up, this is what they go and do. All right, Coach, can you just hit play again, please? It is a muscle snatch. They will not rebend when they pull the bar up. They will achieve triple extension. And you can see, all right, right on the E rack, you can see kind of the start, the mid, and then the end on with the third guy over there. Okay, that's our place kicker, Aaron Boumeri. Okay, Audley Isaacs on the E is one of our linebackers. He's a redshirt freshman. Okay, so we will teach how the elbows are supposed to come up. We do want them to be up on their toes as long as they can do it. Coach, hit play again. And the reason for that is if they cannot get up on their toes, if they cannot plantar flex, we've got a problem. And we know what that problem is right then and there. So before we ask them to go clean, okay, go clean 135. Go clean 185. Oh, it's light, you'll be fine. If they cannot do this, if they cannot get up in that position and we can't see it, we can't identify a problem. And we're going to load these young men in about 5 minutes after they're done doing this. Now, this routine, you have your warm-up, it's going to take about 7 minutes, maybe 9 minutes, depending on your group size and what you have prescribed. But we'll take another 8 minutes to do this routine to prepare them to lift big weights in the clean or in the squat. Everybody cool with that so far? Are there any questions? All right, so now the next clip of the snatch complex is a press behind the neck, not a press in front. And the reason we'll go behind the neck is because it's in a snatch grip, and I don't want any guys, I don't want them leaning back thus far just to press a bar over their head with a wide grip. And the way the shoulders kind of rotated in like that, I'm not a big fan. I don't like, even though it is just the bar, not good with it, okay? So you have your triple extension. We're moving our elbows. We're driving up on our toes, all right? We're achieving triple extension before heavy load. Now we're achieving a press. Our scaps are moving, which is great. We have scapular movement. Go ahead, Coach. Play that again, okay? All right, and it's kind of cheating down there on the left side. If you go, the right side, you're right, excuse me, all the way up, you can see a young man already starting to overhead squat. So you see 6 guys down the line doing this exercise. Hit it again, Coach, please. So you see 6 guys doing this, and we've got players doing a few other movements throughout the room where other coaches are stationed, okay? So that's the second part, and it's all reps of 5. That's what we'll do, 5 muscle snatches, 5 presses, and then the last one, will be the overhead squat. Go ahead, coach. Let's get to that. Now, we're going to show a bunch of videos of this because I want you to see all body types. We're not going to show you just, hey, they'll let the running backs do it. They're short. They're better at it. Whatever. Hit that again, coach. All right, so that's a wide receiver. The second guy up, that's a linebacker down here is a walk-on. That's a walk-on receiver up there next to the gentleman in the gray. Okay, now that movement right there, you can see the reason we love this overhead squat is, and I'm dead serious about it. I mean, the number one will be the squat, the number two will be the clean, and the number three will be an overhead squat. And we will load them. And our linemen, they'll do anywhere from 100 kilos to 140 kilos. And we'll make it part of the workout. Because if they can show that kind of stability and be mobile, I don't know what's more athletic than doing that. That's where we're coming from. I don't want to hear, we're not training Olympic. Ladies and gentlemen, that's fantastic. That is loosening their lats up so it doesn't crank on their lumbar. That's great work. The stability in holding a bar overhead. The isometric and that just to prime the shoulder before they go off and lift. And it's not long enough that it's going to debilitate them. And then look at that hip. When you see that hip get below that knee, all right, you can say, well, why are we doing that? Everybody in here has to have their athletes, unless you're a dart strength coach, which I don't think that exists. Does that exist in Ireland somewhere? No, just keg drinking, right? And that's a strength coach out there, right? But I can say that I'm Irish. So if you have somebody that can overhead squat down to here and my hip is below my knee, and we ask them to do this out on the field, well, this should be easy. That angle should be able to be recreated and duplicated over and over and over again. And if you can elongate your hamstring in the back and sit down low enough and you can have a straight back, then you don't have an athlete doing high knees, rounding their lumbar while trying to be a coach pleaser and get their knees up. That's where we're coming from. Okay? Any questions off of that? Now, in previous experiences, I had the great opportunity to train women's basketball. They did this every day. Every day they were in the weight room, and it didn't matter if it was in season or out of season. We will do it in both. We will not load heavy overhead movements in season like this because, in my very humble opinion, I think the athletes are a little bit too sore the day after a game, after 60 to 100 collisions, to be doing a heavy load like that over their heads. But I do firmly believe through trial and error that they can use the bar and they can use greens, 40 kilos, 88 pounds, whatever, and they can do it successfully. Any questions off of that? Yes, sir?
How many sets are you doing there?
How many sets am I doing here? And reps?
Set reps, right? So you said 5.
Set and reps, okay. So how many sets and reps? We will start every day one set of 5 by 5 by 5. So 5 muscle snatches, 5 presses, 5 overhead squats. And all it is, we've already warmed up. That is really our way of, it's an evaluation tool. That's what do we use it for. Okay? But those movement patterns, so you tell me, if somebody can squat that low with just the bar over their head, okay, it looks pretty good. If he leans to the side, or she leans to the side, or their shoulder wins, you've just, number one, we're not mad at the kid. There's something wrong. And they'll be honest with us because they want to lift big weights. That's the culture in there. It's a very competitive culture. They don't want to be outdone by their partner, okay? There's something wrong with him, and we've got to find that out. So if they can demonstrate that movement pattern, they're ready for any kind of overhead pressing. They can be ready for a push press, a split jerk. The only thing he really doesn't prep you for is a bench press, just that specific movement pattern. That's it, and that's just scapular retraction instead of up and down. Everybody cool with that? All right? Does that help? And it's just one set of 5 by 5 by 5. Now, if we use greens, coach, if we put that, so say that's the first one, and we'll put 10 kilo plates on there after that. It's 5 push presses behind the neck and 5 overhead squats. Now, we will one day a week, winter and summer, we will actually make it an exercise. So we will do, and we actually run a percentage of body weight off of it. All right, so I think we found a pretty good standard at which if a skilled guy can overhead squat his body weight, I think that's pretty good. That's kind of our gauge. And we've got a board, and they'll write their name up there. They get points for their team, and make it fun and competitive and whatnot. But there needs to be like an end game or an end goal. So, and then some people say, well, what are you trying to achieve? Well, if you have any questions of, does Johnny or Susie, are they stable? Are they mobile? Can they move well? Well, in the great FMS book, you're evaluated with a stick. If you can do 170 pounds over your head, I think that's showing everybody that you can move very well and you're pretty stable, okay? Now, what we'll do sets and reps wise is we'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 sets. And when we do it, it's all a snatch. It's a push press behind the neck. So in a snatch grip, and then it's an overhead squat. So essentially, it's the step before you get to a snatch balance. And we'll do all sets of either 3 plus 3, so 3 presses then 3 overhead squats, or we'll go anywhere to 1 plus 1. That's what we'll do, okay? And the amount of time that they're holding that weight overhead, I think you're getting everything you want out of your shoulder development. Does that help, Coach? Thanks for that. That was awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. All right. When global muscles take over the role of local stabilizer muscles, there's generally a latency of offset of firing time for the local stabilizing muscles. This can result in dysfunction and lost stability, leading to compensatory patterns. So what we're trying to do is with our single leg squat, which is what we'll get to, hyperextensions, is we're trying to move little muscles in their back before we load them. Okay, and I had a fantastic grad assistant in 2011. His name was Brett McQuilkin. All right, and what he explained to me, and I learned from him every day. He was fantastic. He said, Coach, you want to think of your spine as an accordion. Before you twist it, you've got to elongate it. You've got to create some space. So that's what we'll do before we put a heavy load of any kind of weight on their back or ask them to really twist. Okay, so I know it's a brand new exercise, right? No one's ever seen this before. I feel like this is kind of a letdown. But start, midpoint, and finish, okay? And we'll do either a set of 10 hypers or a set of 10 reverse hypers every day, depending on the day. And it gets a little old for them, I'm not gonna lie. But, and I tell them, be like, listen, if it works, we're going to do it. So we will overhead squat a bar before every workout, or you'll have a new strength coach. That's really what that means. That's how much I believe in it. And we tell the freshmen, if we do it first, it must be pretty important to us. The spinal flexion will not change. I think that's very important. That's a firm belief of mine. All right, because if any type of movement, you could get your erectors moving, you could get your multifidus activated, you need to use those little muscles in everything you're about to do in the weight room. So they've got to be primed and ready. So if you can knock out a set of 10 of these, in my very humble opinion, they're on their way to lifting big weights, okay? New exercise, Coach. I just make sure everybody saw this one. This is great, okay? I know the sarcasm's it's thick, real thick, okay? Now listen, I'm not promoting the FMS. I think it's cool. But I just like a couple of the quotes. I think it's all really good. All right, mobility and stability gained by working on the single leg movement pattern will enhance body awareness and foster, I love this, okay? Learning to gain better power, speed, and agility in asymmetrical positions. So what we're doing here is the single leg squat. We'll do a single leg variation, and we'll do a set of 5 or 10, depending on the day, before every lift. And we'll change the single leg movement up. We will. And it will, we'll either, now we'll go forward just like that young man is for some more glute activation because they actually have to pull themselves up and through. So now you'll see me in a minute. I'm going to kind of tell him to move his heel up a little. I don't care about the toe being off the bench. That's not a big concern of ours. We want to make sure that they're driving through the heel and they're pulling through and squeezing their glute at the top of the movement. That's what we're looking to do. That's really where we change our single leg movement patterns. And we'll get those little furniture sliders. we'll have them slide out to in. We'll hit 4, 6, and 8 on a clock. Reaching this way, we'll have them do a set of 3 to 5 on each leg. All 3 points equals 1 rep. Because we don't want them to have the same food every day. We've got to change something up. They'll go and say, I don't want to coach the same thing every day. I want to do what really works. And then if we can change something for their engagement, we've got to do it. Okay? So starting up on the bench, that would be the midpoint. And then it would finish the same way. All right, coach, let's hit that up real quick here. So we want to teach them as long as you can. If you're on a box with a little rubber there, like little gray or black rubber, we want to see a little bit of it behind the heel so that we know they're all the way up on the box or on the bench. And this is bench just for space purposes in our room. Okay, so any questions on the single leg movement? Now they're moving pretty quick now. All right, so once they break the room, we'll break them down. They run through the room, and they go off into 2 stations. So this would be one of the warm-up stations is their hip mobility. Okay, so this is going back even further. All right. So what we want to do, go ahead, coach, hit that. And sometimes they're afraid to hit their legs on the, which I kind of like. They're going to force their knee up. Okay. Is if they can lead with one leg, lead with the other, because as long as they're hip-dominant athletes, we'll have a chance. So we have, Coach, can you go back to that real quick? All right. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 6 opportunities for them to walk over on one side and walk over on another. And we'll do a kicks and skip series. We'll do an under-over, and they'll just have to move the rack up on one side of the rack from C to G, and they'll load that up, and they'll do their duck unders, and it'll look pretty good, all right? That is part of their warm-up before they get to their single leg squat. And and we've had coaches come in, and we invite everybody here. If you want to come in and check out what we do, hit me up. Call me, email me, that's fine. It's an open door policy. And it's, well, coach, why do you do so much? Well, those movements are all fine and good. They're not loaded. You're not asking them to perform something extremely difficult in that hurdle mobility. Now we're starting to get into exercises. So your overhead squat, your single leg squat, your hypers, okay? Then we'll get to this, okay? Now, when making a decision like this for us, it took a long time for me to feel comfortable with this. And it may sound silly, but I think the simpler you make things, the better your life is going to be and the better servant will be for athletes, because that's what we are. We're all servants. So when my very first internship, Coach Johansson was there, and he allowed me in his door, and I got to watch them. Wave your hand, Coach. Yep. Okay. And I was so excited to see a college program and these mentors, this is how we do things. This is blah, 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 blah. And then down the road, when I worked down at USF, and Josh Hinkst allowed me to drive up to Florida State to visit, and I just kind of showed up, and he would drop little nuggets along the way over the years. I wouldn't try to bother him. Be like, hey, coach, what do you think about this, 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 and this? And he would get back to me all the time. Gosh, I don't even think he remembers where I interned. But everything, like great coaches I've had the pleasure of learning under, and everything and I was able to absorb, that's what I think is the best thing that we could do for our boys or any athlete before they pick up heavy weights. That is my strong, humble opinion. Does that make, I don't know if that made sense. Strong, I don't know. Help me out here. Lon, help me out. Thank you. Are there any questions about this so far? Okay. Okay, coach, hit him up. Okay, so now we are preparing, and the next thing that they'll do after this, they're either going to snatch or they're going to clean. Everybody cool with that? Now, what if a guy can't do that? What if a player can't do that? Come on up here, Coach. Now, everybody can give the emperor a thumbs down if this doesn't go right. All right, so move up just a hair, Coach. So I've been very lucky to have former strength coach Johnny Parker. He was with the Giants for a long time and a few other NFL teams, and he bounced around the SEC and the Big Ten. And he emailed me out of the blue in 2013, and that man has changed my life in more ways than one. I'm grateful that he took the time to, Coach, if I could ever be of service to you, let me know. I've done it right and done it wrong for over 30 years, and I'd love to be a sounding board for you. Oh, my gosh, you better believe I called him I read it at 4:30 when I got to my desk, and then I called him later that day. All right? So, and I told him that we were doing overhead squats. He goes, Coach, did you ever do any stick squats? I said, Coach, what the heck is that? So what we'll do with our players, if they look a little rough with that bar before they get to what you just saw moving greens, we'll do this. Coach, put that bar up over your head. So what they'll do is, and their feet will be about slightly wider than hip width apart. The toes will be out just slightly. All right? The big thing that we want to teach the players is to push their knees out wide. All right? That little bit of torque pushing out, maximize the entire glute. All right? Your medius minimus, which kind of the rotator cuff of the hip, right? Lack of a better term. Go ahead, Coach. He's going to squat down, pushing the bar up overhead. Now, he did this at Ball State. He was there. He's back for more punishment as our grad assistant, right? So what we'll do is we'll put our knee right in his low back, and he's going to push this bar up as high as he can, and that never changes. And what we'll do is I'll pull his chest up, pushing his knees back out, just a little farther, chest up bigger, head up, and you want to get him in this position. Now, the last bit of it is I want him to tap his toes 2 times. So he's tapping his toes up. Stand up. You're not going to pass out, are you, Coach? No, beautiful. All right. Now, he works with our boys on this exercise all the time, and that's the big thing. If they can tap their toes, that means their heel and the ball of their foot is taking the pressure, which is what you want. You don't want their foot so high up, and some kids will do this, and we don't want to yell at them because it's not bad effort. It's just where they're channeling their energy. So if they lift the ball of their foot up, they're bouncing on their heel, and they might as well be walking on peg legs. We want the big toe up in the air so that their high hamstring and their glute is stretched when they're in the bottom position. So hamstring, this is it. This is going to get you where you want to go, and that's player safety. I'm telling you right now. So one more time, Coach. Stop right there. Push the knees in. Okay? That's not good. That's not what we're looking for. So number 1, stand on up. Okay? So what we're going to do is the first thing I want him to do, if you see that problem, if you decide to do this, I'll say, Kyle, I want you to push your knees out and just sit your butt back, and that's it. That's all I want you to do, and I want you to go halfway down. Go ahead, go. Knees out a little further. Stop right there. Stand on up. Okay? Because I don't want the kid to be afraid. I'll just tell him to go halfway down. He says, that's pretty cool. But how do you know what Disneyland's like until you get all the way down? How do you know until you go there? We've got to get them all the way down. So that's why the knee will come in, and we'll use our hand right up here. Go ahead, squat on down, Coach. Stop right there, all right? And then if he's stiff, if I can push him down there and say, just relax your legs, chest up a little bit, all right? Wiggle your knees in and out, and push your knees out harder. Chest up bigger. Keep the bar pushing high. Pull the shoulders back slightly. Stand up. And that is a stick squat. And then if they can do that, go ahead, Coach. I got it. Thank you. If they can do that, they'll be over the overhead squat greens. And that bar should be able to be over the midfoot. Go to the end of the bar over the midfoot. Everybody, any questions on that? Yes?
What if you have an athlete that routinely struggles with that?
What if they have routinely struggles with that?
Yeah.
Put them against a wall with a physio ball. And you can go, Al Miller taught me this when I visited him at the Raiders. So he would go from a bigger ball to a smaller ball, maybe even a volleyball, and put them right up against the wall, and that's how they would ease their way into doing that. And it'll build confidence as well. That's a great question. Thank you. Another question? Nope? Okay. So looking at, the first 2 gentlemen here, on the right and left are quarterbacks, a running back, a tight end, mostly tight ends going down the line. The third kid on the right is about 6'4", 3/4, maybe 6'5". At 5'8", ladies and gentlemen, everybody's 6'5". That's the best I can do. Go ahead, coach. Hit the play button on that. So that's their 5 push presses, coach, and then their 5 overhead squats, just like you had asked before. And again, the first 2 are quarterbacks. And we'll be careful on how much we actually load the quarterbacks. They can do about 170 pounds over their head, about 80 kilos, 176 pounds. Play it again, coach. And this is all before they start to power clean. This is all before they start to snatch. Once they're done with this, they should be primed and ready to lift big weights. Questions on that group? Questions on quarterbacks? Nothing. Okay. Lon, how am I doing on time? Pretty good? He left. Okay. Moving forward again, and we're showing you all of these for body types. Okay? So, go ahead, coach. Hit that right up. That's one of our linebackers. The rest are DBs down the line. There's Coach Sager down there. All right. Play it again, coach. What we're trying to accomplish on a daily basis is the end of that barbell to go right over the midfoot. That is it. And any time you can have an athlete elongate their lats and have a healthy low back and their anterior is stimulated when doing this exercise, it is a win, and it is a huge win. All right, and it doesn't help you hit a baseball any better. That's a serious skill, and I understand that. But it'll help how fast you move that bat. It'll help how fast that you run. And that's what we're looking to achieve, okay? All right, here's the beef. Go ahead, coach. You know that first guy on the right, he probably weighs 180 pounds? Times 2, okay? And then, so we have 2 offensive linemen first. We have 2 defensive linemen next. All right, coach, hit that one more time, please. Now, you're going to see the guy in the white shoes. If you could watch him real quick. All right, now, that's Jovan Fair. He's one of our guards, all right? He was better with the bar earlier than that. And you can say, well, you know, everybody in here, we're all hypercritical, and that's, that first squat, be like, I don't know. So us knowing him, we're gonna give that kid the chance to achieve a better squat. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're not hitting the panic button saying, oh, he can't do that. Maybe he's got tight hip flexors from whatever practice, and that's what we're looking for, okay? So I'm going to go backwards here on you, coach, okay? Now, if you see these 2 guys up here in the front, I'm going to go right back to that, right back to the barbell. It's not different than that. And we'll walk around practice with those cherry sticks, and we'll have them do those stick squats for 10, 15 minutes throughout their indie period, and they all want it. Coach, come on, coach, got a second? And we'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 reps of that and push them down into that position to loosen them up. Questions on that? Yes, sir.
This picture here, do you like going to that depth? Do you like going to parallel? Because on the other ones you go far beyond parallel. And I'm just wondering, is that what you want to go beyond parallel for more mobility?
Yes, sir.
Are you worried about injuring the knee at all?
No, not at all.
Repeat the question?
So it was, no, I know. I'm going to.
I was wondering.
Yeah. Do you want them to go that low? Is that beneficial for them?
Because I would usually always suggest going to parallel a little bit beyond it, but not on those other videos that you were showing.
As long as,
Way beyond parallel.
yeah, it is way beyond parallel. And if they're low back, if they don't have that butt wink and they can keep a pretty straight back, let them do it. Because, and I'll show you this, that, and the way it was explained to me was, if you are going to bench press, your hinge joint of an elbow, you'll be there. Your forearm will probably touch your bicep, especially on a close grip. And we've all done that. The knee is the same exact joint. It's the same thing. So as long as your low back doesn't round, coach, do it. Do it. Now, if his low back starts to round, we'll put a box underneath him and make him lightly touch it. He won't slam on it. We'll have to change something up out, or maybe put a band around low rails on a rack. But we'll have him do that. Because if you got a squatty potty at home, coach? I do. I love that thing. You didn't think you'd hear that today, did you? How am I doing on time? What time is it? So if you see, okay, if you see that position and you say, well, his back looks good, his knees are out, he can tap his toes up and down, especially that one up there above him, they're fine. But the second you see that low back round a bit, get a box out, make him get down there, and make him touch that. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I noticed in the other video, Coach, you got a couple of guys who had Olympic lifting shoes on.
Yes.
Most not. What's your take on that?
Okay, what's my take on Olympic lifting shoes in the workout that you saw? All right, so those shoes were built for very specific people. And the pattern will change once you have a heel elevation. Okay, so if you take that away, that's going to look differently. And I am a huge fan of some guys using shoes if their ankles aren't that flexible. They still have to be loaded, and we're trying to prepare them for that. And that's a judgment call by our strength staff, all right, that I think these guys look pretty good without lifting shoes. But there are some that are limited, and with some exercises, if we got guys that can't power clean, coach, we'll make them go from the hanger from blocks. And we'll start to work our way down from there. But they still need to be under load in order to get stronger and get faster. It's just, well, how do we do it? And if they're not ready if they need Olympic lifting shoes for that heel lift, we're going to use it. And then eventually, we can take it away. And if we can't, there's probably an underlying issue in there. Either their soleus is cranked way too tight, or there's a shoulder problem, or there's significant lat tightness. There could be something wrong. And that bar will tell us that story. Okay? Another hand. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned that during individual periods during practice that you guys will do stick squats.
Yes, sir.
How does that work with shoulder pads on?
How does doing overhead squats with a stick work with shoulder pads on? Coach, those wide receivers in the NFL make a lot of money reaching real high to catch that ball.
Say that one more time.
The NFL receivers, when they go to catch that ball, their hands go real high. They can do it. They can definitely do it. And I'll tell you what, it'll depend on how wide you get your hands, because in the good book of USAW, you want probably 290-degree angles and then go up. You may have to go a little wider with some shoulder pads. They can do it. And then I haven't seen it in a while, but I would think if you have like kids with shoulder pads from the movie The Little Giants and they don't move, and you got the intimidation kid and he can't move, you may have to take.
I just meant in general. Obviously, I know skill pads
Yes, sir.
are different than
Yep.
backer pads or lineman pads.
Yep.
Just,
No, they'll do it. I promise you, Coach, they'll do it.
I got you.
Yes, sir. All right, so one more over there. Okay. Now, when going over, how many in here back squat their athletes? Can you just give me raise of hands? Okay. Put your hands down, please. Is there a time when you will squat 50% or less? Does anybody do that? Okay. Can anybody tell me why they would do that if it's not a jump squat? Does anybody want to tell me why?
Something different.
Something different.
Conditioning, metabolic day.
Okay. So I think the really cool thing about a loaded overhead squat is that it'll alleviate stress on the legs and put more on the shoulders. And the reason that we'll load it is if we want to take a load off the legs one day, and I'm not saying that nobody does, but in our minds, we want to make it really worth their while. And they could do low repetitions and a little bit heavier weight overhead, and it'll just change up their routine for the week. Next question. Yes, sir.
How long does it typically take for most of your athletes before you start loading them up on this the first time they walk into the room?
How long does it take for all this process before they start loading? Before you start loading them up? All right, this is the question I knew that was coming. And I don't think anybody's going to like the answer. It will take about 17 minutes for them to start cleaning. And everybody will say, well, we just have an hour. And you're probably right. And coach, this is our thought process. And our lifts will go about an hour and 10 minutes. And we'll put that on the books. The auxiliary exercises are fine. You can move through those pretty quick. The reason we take our time doing this is so that, the biggest, strongest people in the world, they bench heavy, they squat heavy, and they deadlift heavy. Donnie Thompson's in the back. He'll tell you all that. If that squat is that important, which in our program, coach, it is, then we want maximal intensity, and we want to make sure that every muscle in that body has been moving and is ready to withstand load. And that's our thought process. Because if a guy ever tweaked something and we couldn't identify a low back issue or a shoulder issue that could lead to a back issue, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
What about an incoming athlete that's never trained at your gym? How long are you working on form before you load stuff? Is it like a 4-week, 6-week period before you start to load guys up, or are you doing that?
Okay, so the question was, how long will we work on form when a newcomer comes in the door before we start to load them? With, sir? With this specific movement. We will do this right away. The very first day, they will do the bar. And they won't touch a heavier weight with this exercise than just the bar. And we'll do multiple sets of it, coach. We'll go to anywhere from 2 to 4 sets of 5 by 5 by 5 in their workout. So when the freshmen come to Temple, when they get here in June, the end of June, they do this every day to start their workout. Because the only way they're going to get better at it is to do it. And we tell them, if you're doing it first, it is important. So we better get good at it. And then our staff will go around and we'll hold cherry sticks and we'll force them into that stick squat position. Because, coach, in our mind, and this is the funny thing about what we do, is because you want to, coach, these kids get in the door, you want to set the tone, you want to put them through something that's going to tax them, and we do that later on in the workout. But in our minds, if you miss something in a physical, or if a kid has an ache or a sprain walking through the door and they don't tell you that, and they get hurt, who are they going to blame? They're going to blame us all the way, and they're going to take that blame to the bank. So that is our number one when they get in the door. And we will do it over and over and over and over again. And by the time they get to their developmental program, so in our program, when they redshirt, fuel will move up. But when you have your red shirts at 6 a.m. and they lift 4 days a week during the fall, then we'll start to load them lightly. And if they're not ready, coach, then they're not ready. And we'll load them in a different way. But we make it abundantly clear that that's our bread and butter. Now, if a guy has an anterior labral tear, we probably won't do it. We'll do something else. We may just have him do stick squats instead of loading him. But that's probably the rare case. So one more hand up in the back. Okay. When going to greens, so what percentages do we do? That's the big, that's kind of like the question that we'll go by. And You know, talking to Al Vermeil, if you ever have a chance to talk to him, please do so. He is brilliant. And he will research something, and I've gone back and forth with him on numerous exercises. And at the end of all of the research, and of all the conversation on one movement or two movements or three, he'll say, David, just at the end of the day, if it doesn't look right, it ain't right. Don't do it. All right, Coach, thanks a lot. That's great. That's hours of dedication toward one topic, and then that's what you come up with. Unbelievable. So when doing this, all right, and they can tap your toes. If you can find out what is really wrong with them, I think that's pretty cool. Now, right from there, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Right from there, they will go into power cleaning, that weight, specifically, everybody in the room, and then that's it. They're done. They start loading up. Because I would watch, you know, like everybody here has, you watch Iron Mind videos, you watch, you know, Olympic lifters in Russia and whatnot. What's the weight that they start off with? The bar and then that. That's what they do. And I know you only have a certain amount of time to get in what you got to get in. But if they get hurt doing it, and I'm not saying it's a foolproof method because nothing ever is, no matter who tells you what, that's what we need to have happen. So then the developmental kids, when they come in, that's what they'll do, and then they'll do this almost every single day in the fall. Questions off of the programming. Getting to the percentages. Now, how do we know what's a good percentage? We talked about the skill players being able to do what kind of weight? Body weight. Now, not that it's an exact formula, but going off the Vermeil method that he bestowed upon me after hours of research is, I said, Coach, I think it looks right if you're mid-skill guys, because they'll have slightly higher body fats than your skill guys. So if they could do 90% of their body weight, I think that looks right. David, I think you might be onto something. Then the linemen, we'll take that down to 80%. That's our end game with them. And it's for one repetition. So we treat it like a max. And if a guy's going to hit it, we'll stop the room and we will celebrate that moment. Everybody will stop. Because if you have a lineman that can overhead squat 250 pounds, that's pretty good by me. They could do 300 pounds, that's really good. And then in our minds, unless a freakish accident happens, we feel extremely confident that they can lock up with somebody, they won't get thrown around, their shoulders are strong enough to withstand the chaos of football, and you'll have a better athlete out of it because they can last longer. The best trait's their availability. Anything else on that? Now, how do you build up to it? We will start the linemen off at 40% of their body weight. Now that's after greens. So after they do their greens, they should demonstrate good control. And they'll move their way up. With the skill guy, with the mid-skill, we'll go 45% and then the skill 50%. And then we'll move up from there. We'll jump around from 5 to 10%, and the skill guys will probably be better at it than most because they don't weigh that much. Now you're talking about 4 sets. You go 2 plus 2 the whole way. 2 push presses, 2 overhead squats. So now we're looking at, after this, after you know they can do this, it's, say, 50% 2 plus 2, 60% 2 plus 2, 70% for 2 sets of 2 plus 2, and that's a pretty darn good workout. And that's just one exercise in that workout. And we'll probably do it after our heavy compound movement, whether it's upper body or lower body, depending on the day. Or that might be the second thing that they do after snatching. Just depends on where we are in our cycle. Any questions on the programming part of it? Yes, sir.
We still work off percentages of their body weight, even if they haven't hit that weight yet?
Do we work off percentages? Okay.
Still start them at 50% of the body weight. It's not like 50% of what they can do.
Okay, so if they cannot handle a percentage of their body weight yet, what do we do with them?
I'm saying if they haven't hit, like, for a skill guy, 100% of their body weight yet, you're still basing their, like, work set off of their body weight? Okay.
Yes. So what we'll do is, all right, so the question was, what if a skilled guy cannot cannot do one rep at his max, at his 100% body weight, where do we have him at? So, Coach, I'm gonna let you know how we really. You ever have grandma's recipes and never turns out the same because she didn't tell you about X, Y, and Z? I'm gonna tell you X, Y, and Z. We won't program 100% on any given day. We will let them take it away. So what we'll do is, hey, Johnny or Brandon, we're gonna work all the way up to 80%. And if you want, hit a bonus single. Let's see what you got. And then if they know they can earn team points for their winner teams, and they know that, well, if I overhead squat this, I can earn 10 points to getting, X, Y, and Z or having my team finish, they're going to do it. I mean, they're competitive. So if we can get them to do that on a bonus scheme, let them do it. Let them go up. One rep is not going to hurt them. The volume is what will kill you. The one repetition, that's not going to hurt you unless it's way too much. But we'll dial it down. Now, we have a couple of people that cannot do that, and we understand that. And so on every Friday, when it takes 4 or 5 hours to program for every kid on what they can and cannot do, we will prescribe a little different plan for that kid, and we'll type in a note on their sheet saying, hey, Jimmy, you're going to do 30, 35, 40, 45% of your body weight today, and we'll see how it looks. And we'll videotape it. One of the coaches will do it, and we'll invest that time in there, show him, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
I work predominantly with high school kids. What do you think about, we overhead squat all the time, but anywhere between 5 and the bar, 20 kilogram. What do you think about the high school kids with loading?
Okay, what do we think about high school kids loading the overhead squat with heavy weight, right? Okay, I had the distinct honor of getting my USAW certification in Montpelier, Vermont. This was in 2005. And a high school science teacher named Chris Polakowski, he ran a weightlifting team out of there, and he built his own platforms. Coach, he bought weights that were old, but they still bumped, right? They worked. The bars are what he really went after, and he was particular about that. And then I see all these little shoes. You see little middle school shoes running around, and I see these 11-year-old boys and girls walk in. And then I see them snatching, and I see them cleaning. And then I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. And then I see them snatching and cleaning more. And then I got to repeat my process. They can do that as far as you want to take them, as long as it looks clean. In my opinion, you want to make a better athlete, make them tumble, make them do that. And that's it. But you can load them up. I think the body will withstand great loads as long as it's gradually done. So if you're doing that with them, God bless you, Coach. That's awesome. Hand up in the back.
What's your opinion on your athletes with labral tears doing a kettlebell overhead squat while your other athletes are going up in percentage?
Okay, that's you're putting me on the spot on a national stage, brother. Let me tell you something. I'll be branded for this. Okay, so what's my opinion on someone with a labral tear doing this when somebody else is doing over? So you will have your labral tear people do with one arm, right? Okay. With a posterior labral tear, they'll be able to withstand that. They can do that. If they can't, then we'll probably keep them with just a stick and we won't load them up. That's still in our mind the granddaddy of all positions. That's our end all. If it's an anterior one, we're not going to mess with it. Okay. Now with the posterior, that's not a 100% rule for us. But if they can do it, let them do it. As long as it's pain-free. But now, what we'll watch for, Coach, is if they start to shift or you see a shoulder height difference, you got to stop that and you got to address that right away. That would be my advice. Thank you for that. So another hand. Okay, so I'll take you here to the end. References, and that's all fine and good. All right, we've got some football camp dates, which, we'll get to all that later. All right, if anybody would like to get a hold of me, I've got business cards up here if you want, and that's my email. And I'll end on this, that I am extremely grateful for my path. I really am. And I'm glad I interned. I'm grateful I met Coach Johansson and Jay Butler. And I'm so glad I met Josh Hingst along the way. I'm glad I met Donnie Thompson along the way. And I mean, the staff that we have, I'm grateful. Coach Horton and I worked together at FIU, and we got the band back together one more time. All right, Coach Barber's up in the back, and I'm glad that we brought him along. All right, and he used to work for Rick Court, who'll talk tomorrow, and he'll be fantastic. And I'm grateful for Kyle Sager coming aboard. He was a scholarship earner from a walk-on at Ball State, and I got to be with him for 4 out of his 5 years. And I'm telling you what, I call people constantly. Like Rob Panarillo in New York. I call Johnny Park. I wear that guy out, and I'm grateful that those guys, I'm grateful I had John Grieco in my life, Roderick Moore, Al Miller, Al Vermeil, and I don't want to start, those people, some of them I fell into, and some of those people I had to call and keep calling and asking questions and wanting to learn. And there is no way that I have every answer in the book. And we tell our kids, if we don't have an answer, we're going to find it for you in 24 hours. That's our job. And that's why I'm grateful every day that they take my call. You can't buy that. That's priceless. And I'm the luckiest person standing up here on the stage. I really hope that this helps somebody out. And if you need anything, if you would like, we're open invite. You got to have to contact me first directly. But if you'd like to come by, we would like to have everybody in here. I don't know if we can house everybody at one time, but we'd like you to come by and watch a lift. And if we can be of service to you or any coaches in your community, let us know. Thank you.